Once one person gets through and puts down their stuff, the others quickly follow. Maria, just in the last few minutes, police here in Ottawa have been handing out these flyers to the demonstrators that basically says, well, you got to leave now or you might be arrested. And the police have also expanded what they call the no-go zone. What's the feeling like today?
They are excited.
All right, thank you so much. Sir Richard Branson, it was nice to meet you. Well, there you go, from the man himself. The crew is always talking to the villagers to find out what their biggest needs are, because sometimes those needs change day to day. They're leaving all kinds of things here, and you know, even though all of these kind of look the same, all the flowers, there's a teddy bear there, the posters, the balloons, and each of these candles, they really do tell a story. Each one tells a story of the individual who thought enough to come up here today and last night to leave this. And that's the message that you're getting from a lot of people here. It's the last trek of a journey that for some took weeks and almost 5,000 kilometers, crossing the Rio Grande River from Mexico into the U.S. At times, we hear kids screaming as they're hoisted onto whoever has the strongest and highest shoulders. They link arms for good reason. A 3-year-old child was swept away here last week by the current. Eventually, after reaching the American side, a young man finds a bit of an opening in the barbed wire. He lays down his backpack as a pathway. And once one person gets through and puts down their stuff, the others quickly follow. For some, the very last step is the hardest. And now they smile and cry. It wasn't easy, this mother tearfully tells us. The Border Patrol is hands off. Once they made it across, these people were asking us where they could officially turn themselves in to apply for asylum and just get some water. It's here, a few steps away, under a bridge. On Tuesday, the Border Patrol cut through parts of the barbed wire to allow migrants in.
The border actually starts in the middle of the river, so by the time the migrants encounter our agents, they are already in the U.S. They can't climb up the riverbank, which is fine until they start getting themselves into trouble. If they start getting swept away by the currents, if they start succumbing to the environment, the extreme temperatures and the humidity that you all feel right now, and my men and women see that, they are not going to let somebody die.
A former Border Patrol agent tells us the U.S. is not doing enough to keep migrants out.
They know this is the land of freebies.
What would you say to these people who are crossing right now in front of us?
Look, one thing is, why don't you stay home and fix your country? They'll give you reasons, economic reasons, corruption, socialism, dictatorships. I get that, but at some point or another, and I use America as a model, we pushed back and fought against everything that they're fleeing.
But they all felt the fear in their home countries was greater than the fear of making this trip. And once they do get over, exhausted, some praying to whoever might be listening, they rejoice in at least the possibility of a fresh start. Are you happy?
Happy.
Andy Rosejan, Eagle Pass, Texas. History will remember him as Tuva number 2. But today, he is the top Turk in space. Tuva Atasever was speechless as he took the stage after his flight aboard the Virgin Galactic Unity spacecraft in New Mexico. The 90-minute flight sent Tuva and 3 paying customers blasting into the lower reaches of space and reveling in their brief weightlessness.
It's super fun and it's so comforting as well. There's something to it which brings about an immense serenity. There's a innate peacefulness to it.
On the other hand, Tuva said the blast that propelled them into space was anything but peaceful.
Boy, that power that we were riding on that ship was probably the most impressive aspect of the flight.
Tuva headed into the flight with a half a dozen science experiments attached to his body. That orange headgear measured how lower bodily fluids tend to collect in the skull during space flights and cause health problems. And he got a pre-flight hug from Virgin co-founder Richard Branson. It was Branson's very first space flight in 2021 that kicked off the 7 crewed missions since.
It's a beautiful day, and looking forward. I think it's your second Turkish astronaut.
Yes. Tuva's family was thrilled too.
It was great. It was wonderful.
Well, at first we're all, of course, kind of concerned because it also has risks, But right now we're so happy.
For Tuva, he will now follow in the footsteps of the first Turk in space, Alper Gezerafca, by talking to kids in Turkey and inspiring them to look toward space. This was the last space flight for Unity. Virgin says they may repurpose it somehow, or maybe even put it in a museum. And Turkey continues to look skyward too. Next month, the first Turkish communication satellite will launch from Florida. And Turkey is chasing after a permanent base on the moon by 2026, just as much as the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans. And Tuva has just taken Turkey one step closer to those sky-high dreams. Andy Roesgen, TRT World, New Mexico. It's noisy and gusty and dusty. It feels rushed and chaotic, but it's maybe the most beautiful sight in the world.
Thank you. God bless you. Welcome.
For villagers in remote areas, there's a non-stop need for food and shelter.
Our biggest need is a place to sleep. As you can see, we are outside in the cold.
Thousands of tons of donated goods are pouring in from around the world, from tents and baby diapers to a single small box of donated beanie hats from America to the arrival on Tuesday of Japan's first government shipment, 18 tons of donated goods, including a portable field hospital.
Not only personally, but all over the country, everybody who saw those scenes on the TV got their hearts broken, and they all wanted to help.
After a couple of chaotic days in the beginning, Incirlik Air Base has streamlined the collection and distribution process. Every time a helicopter arrives, airmen race to line up and load up the goods. About 200 flights are going out each day, and we're on this one, carrying about 2 tons of goods, headed to 3 remote villages that are tough to reach by car. No seats or seat belts on these packed flights. Barely enough room for people and boxes. From the air, we get a view of the earthquake scars in the ground. The fault lines run so close to these villages. As the helicopter descends, the villagers rush out. We talked with one man who actually chose to live here with relatives because his apartment in the city was damaged.
10 minutes before the helicopter arrived, I was praying, and another small quake hit. I immediately went outside. Aftershocks are continuing. We got used to it, but the children are scared.
The crew is always talking to the villagers to find out what their biggest needs are, because sometimes those needs change day to day. Within a few minutes, the villagers have a new lease on life. They wish the crew well and wait for their return. Andy Roesgen, TRT World, Adana. You hear stories about border towns in America being overrun by migrants, like this town, Eagle Pass, Texas. But the truth is, it's actually pretty quiet here, and that's the problem.
People are literally not coming by. They're kind of shut in, they're staying home, and they're afraid because of this mass migration.
William Ward and his wife run a sandwich shop in Eagle Pass. Most migrants who arrive here get bused to other cities. But Ward's local customers are nervous, and some of his employees have been harassed.
We know actively that there's not a lot of people that are going to cause harm, but the consensus is, there's a lot of people, we don't know who they are, so they're just staying home and not coming out to our business.
Another big issue. Last week, the U.S. shut down one of the 2 international bridges here that connect the U.S. and Mexico. The reason? There aren't enough U.S. federal border agents to handle the incoming migrants. The result? Well, it can take hours just to get across the remaining bridge, and it's cutting into all the legal cross-border traffic, hurting the economies on both sides. Throughout Texas, there are mixed feelings. A flag-waving member of a local patriotic group stands right where the migrants cross through barbed wire, shouting at them to respect America. On the streets of Eagle Pass, there is compassion, but also wariness.
Obviously, we understand, that there's desperation going on, but at the same time, the safety of our community is a big concern, especially for kids.
The mayor of Eagle Pass wishes the federal government would do a better job of convincing the migrants to stay home.
There's no consequence, no deportation, so the word gets out. These people, I mean, they have phones, they communicate with the people back home, and that's why big groups are coming in.
The Biden administration has committed 800 more border agents to help get the bridge reopened and help with the asylum process. And the U.S. says Mexico's effort to increase deportations on its side is helping. But as long as migrants see hope in America, they won't stop trying to get in. Andy Rosen, TRT World, Eagle Pass, Texas.